Blackburn Social Club. God bless America. I'm going to be in the truck for a little bit today, so I thought I would use this time to talk about how I got into restoring old Airstreams. I had done a few videos back, and I had mentioned that I was in the business of Airstream Restorations for a little while, and I offered to tell you guys more, and a few people asked about it, so why not? It's either that or listen to the radio talk about the Super Bowl halftime show or whatever, politics. So I'd rather talk about Airstreams and businesses that didn't work out. So I figured I'd start with how I got started in the business. This would have been back in probably 04 or 05, somewhere in there. And my wife and I had bought some property, and we were building a house, and prior to construction on the house, I built a barn, and it not unlike I did here at this place, but so I've kind of got a habit of doing that. But my barn comes first. I needed a barn, needed a place to store everything, and so the barn got put up, and I built an apartment inside the barn. And we had I had a young family. It was, like I said, it was just me, my wife, and my daughter at the time, and half the barn was a built-out, air-conditioned space. It was heated, cooled, air-conditioned, big open, floor plan, much like you see my style on this barn. But and it was just kind of a cool spot. We were living in the barn. It was well built. It was safe. It was all the things. And we had just broken ground on the house. So the house is, the lot is cleared, the cinder block, the foundation's coming up. And I come home one day, and so we had been living in that barn for maybe 5 or 6 weeks by the time this foundation is coming up, and all, we're getting to this stage. And so now I come home from work, and there's a note on my door from the codes department, that the county codes department, and somebody, long story short, I called him and said, can I help you, or what was going on? And he said somebody had called codes and reported that a family was living in a barn. And so immediately I kind of started backtracking, and I was like, well, I don't know, living's a strong word. I mean, we do stay here a lot, and we're obviously building the house, and so yeah, we definitely sleep over, and I was doing everything I could to avoid admitting that we were full-time living in this barn. And he said, well, look, man, I'm not here to judge, but I do have to come out and do an inspection. And I said, okay. And he was a super cool guy. I mean, on the phone, he even told me, in the coolest way possible, he said, if I come in there and you don't have a bed, then you can't be living there. And it was, I was picking up what he was putting down. So as soon as I hung up the phone, I went and took the bed out of the apartment, and I put it on the other side in the storage. And so when he got there and he met me, he walked in, and his eyes got big as saucers, and he loved the place. And he's like, dude, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And he's like, I'd give anything to stay here, and blah, blah, blah. And I told him, I said, my mother-in-law lives right down the road. And, if I'm being honest, yes, we try to stay here as much as we can because we want to see the house getting built. And did I mention my mother-in-law? I don't want to stay with my mother-in-law. And so he goes, well, let me give you some advice. He said, if you had, let's say, a camper out here, there'd be nothing I could do to keep you from staying in that camper. And for a minute, I pondered what he was telling me, because I thought, why would I live in a camper when I've got this, $80,000 building sitting here? But then it dawned on me. I'm a little slow at times. It dawned on me that what he was telling me, and I said, I follow you. So I immediately hit eBay and I started looking for used campers, and I was just looking for something that I could park right in front of my building. That way the neighbors couldn't, I was trying to be, I was trying to be a little smug about it. I was like, that'll really give them something to complain about. They don't like it because I'm living in an $80,000 barn, which, by the way, that was 20 years ago, and now barn doors are all the thing. But they didn't like that I was living in a barn, so let me park a $2,500 camper out there and see how they like that. But I started looking, and it's funny how style always finds its way to get out. Because as I was looking for old used campers, I come across an Airstream, and I had never, at that stage in my life, I was, God, how old was I? I was 20, I might have been 27 or 28. I don't know that I knew what an Airstream was, but I immediately knew what style was, and I thought, now that's cool. I would park that outside my house any day of the week. And I started doing some research, and I started, learning more about them, and I was hooked, because I'm a classic car guy. I'm an old guy. I just love the old stuff. And so I was hooked, and I fell in love with the campers, and I fell in love with the everything about them, the nostalgia of these old Airstreams. And so I found one. I went and picked it up. I parked it out there, and it was a gutted mess. Everything inside of it was falling apart. Nothing worked. Again, none of it needed to work. I just needed a place to pretend like I was staying. But the more I looked at it, the more I started getting ideas about what I could do with it. And the more I had ideas, the more I looked on the internet, and I found that these things were popular, and they were not only were they cool, but they were the Cadillac of their time. I mean, they were the best, and they still are, by the way. They were the best thing that money could buy. And so, much like I have done with cars my whole life, I thought this could be an investment. I could fix this thing up. I could resell it. I could do that again. I could flip them. And so I, like a lot of things, I started a website, and I just started, I was going to document what I was doing with this trailer. And before I could even get going, people were reaching out to me asking if I worked on it. And of course, I've always been mechanically inclined. I've always been somewhat of an electrical, I could always do stuff with my hands. I could always troubleshoot, solve stuff, just the nature of everything I've done growing up. And so when people started contacting me, telling me that they would pay me to work on their stuff and pay me to fix their stuff, I was in business. And so I started a side hustle, and I started letting, before you knew it, I had three campers parked in that lot in front of my barn while the house was being built. And I was working during the day, and I would come home on the weekends, and I would fix, electrical problems, and I would start doing small, light aluminum repair panels. And it just gradually grew into the point where I had to, I don't know that I had to make a decision, but I wanted to make a decision. So I left my job and went full time doing the trailers. And so it was, like I said, that was the start, and I'll leave it at that for now, because we're at 10 minutes. So I'll leave it at that. That's how I started in the Airstream business. It was because somebody called codes on me for living in a barn. So obviously I went on to do another 15, 18 trailers, a lot of big big, expensive, nice builds, a lot of musicians, a lot of cross-country road trips, a lot of hairy situations, and then eventually, like I mentioned in the last video, eventually the market kind of took that downturn, and I couldn't support my family anymore. So I went back to work, and like I said before, the rest is history. So, all right, if you guys still want to hear more, I'll come up with some better stories to tell, but I thought I'd at least use a little bit of this drive to tell you how I got into the Airstream business and then eventually how I got out of it. So, you guys be blessed. Talk soon.